The story of Jezebel. Jezebel is a significant and controversial figure in the Bible, primarily found in the Old Testament, specifically in the books of 1 Kings and 2 Kings. Her story unfolds during the reign of King Ahab of Israel in the 9th century BCE and serves as a cautionary tale about idolatry, manipulation, and the consequences of turning away from God. Jezebel was a Phoenician princess, the daughter of Ethbaal, the king of Sidon. She married Ahab, the king of Israel, to strengthen political alliances between Israel and Phoenicia. Ahab's marriage to Jezebel marked a critical turning point in Israel's history as she introduced the worship of Bel, a Canaanite deity, into Israelite society. Upon marrying Ahab, Jezebel quickly began to influence him and the nation. She was fervently devoted to Baal and Asherah, promoting their worship and constructing temples and altars for them in Israel. This act was seen as a direct affront to Yahweh, the God of Israel, who had commanded exclusive worship. Jezebel's influence over Ahab was profound. He was described as doing more to provoke the Lord God of Israel to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. 1 Kings 16:33. Under her guidance, Ahab abandoned the worship of Yahweh, leading the nation into spiritual decline and idolatry. The rise of Baal worship under Jezebel's influence led to significant tensions with the prophets of Yahweh. One of the most notable confrontations was with the prophet Elijah. Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal to a contest on Mount Carmel to demonstrate whose deity was the true God. The contest ended dramatically with Yahweh answering Elijah's prayer by sending fire from heaven, consuming the sacrifice, the wood, and even the stones and water surrounding it. After this defeat, Jezebel, furious at Elijah for killing her prophets, vowed to take his life, prompting Elijah to flee for his life into the wilderness, 1 Kings 19. One of the most infamous episodes involving Jezebel is the story of Naboth's vineyard, 1 Kings 21. Ahab desired Naboth's vineyard, which was adjacent to his palace, but Naboth refused to sell it, citing the importance of his ancestral land. Jezebel, seeing her husband's distress, devised a plan to have Naboth falsely accused of blasphemy and treason. She orchestrated a scheme that led to Naboth being stoned to death, after which Ahab seized the vineyard. This act of treachery exemplified Jezebel's ruthless ambition and disregard for moral integrity. Elijah's prophecy. In response to Jezebel and Ahab's actions, the prophet Elijah returned to confront Ahab. He delivered a prophecy of doom, declaring that both Ahab and Jezebel would face severe consequences for their sins. Elijah foretold that dogs would eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel, 1 Kings 21:23, a prophecy that would later come to pass. The downfall of Jezebel. After Ahab's death, Jezebel continued to wield power, but her reign was marked by increasing opposition. Jehu, anointed by the prophet Elisha to be king, led a revolt against the house of Ahab. As Jehu approached the city of Jezreel, Jezebel adorned herself and looked out from a window, taunting him. Jehu commanded her servants to throw her down, and they obliged, resulting in her death. Jehu then entered the palace, and when he ordered her body to be buried, they found only her skull, feet, and the palms of her hands, fulfilling Elijah's prophecy, 2 Kings 9:30-37. Jezebel's legacy is one of manipulation, idolatry, and defiance against God. She is often cited as a symbol of wickedness and is used in later biblical texts to describe those who lead others astray. Her story serves as a reminder of the dangers of turning away from faithfulness to God and the moral decay that can result from unchecked power and idolatry. Jezebel's narrative continues to resonate in discussions about power dynamics, morality, and the consequences of one's choices, making her a complex and enduring figure in biblical history. The story of Delilah. In the ancient land of Israel, During a tumultuous time when the Israelites were oppressed by the Philistines, a man named Samson rose to prominence. Known for his incredible strength, Samson was a judge of Israel, a divinely chosen leader meant to deliver his people from their enemies. However, his life was marked by personal struggles and a series of tumultuous relationships, one of which would alter the course of his destiny forever. Among the many tales of Samson's exploits, his encounter with a woman named Delilah stands out. Delilah was a woman from the valley of Sorek, known for her beauty and charm. Samson, drawn to her, fell deeply in love. But Delilah's heart was not pure. She was entangled in the schemes of the Philistines, who sought to subdue Samson, their most formidable adversary. The Philistine rulers approached Delilah with a proposition. If she could discover the secret of Samson's strength, they would reward her handsomely. They offered her silver, a tempting sum that could secure her wealth and status. Delilah, driven by ambition, and perhaps by the allure of power, agreed to betray the man she claimed to love. Delilah began her deceitful quest, coaxing Samson to reveal the source of his extraordinary strength. "Tell me, Samson, what makes you so powerful? What would it take to bind you?" she asked sweetly, her eyes sparkling with feigned innocence. Samson, unaware of her true intentions, replied with a riddle. He told her that if he were bound with 7 fresh bowstrings, he would become weak like any other man. Delilah, eager to prove her loyalty to the Philistines, tested his claim. She called for the Philistine rulers and bound Samson with the bowstrings while he slept. When she shouted, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson," he broke free effortlessly, the bowstrings snapping like thread. Disappointed but undeterred, Delilah pressed Samson again. "You have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you can be bound." Once more, Samson shared a half-truth, saying that if he were tied with new ropes that had never been used, he would be powerless. Again, Delilah deceived him, binding him with new ropes and calling for the Philistines. But once more, Samson broke free, his strength unyielding. Frustrated and desperate to uncover the truth, Delilah resorted to emotional manipulation. "How can you say you love me when you won't confide in me?" she lamented, her voice laced with feigned hurt. Caught in her web of deceit, Samson finally revealed his secret. His strength was derived from his uncut hair, a symbol of his vow to God as a Nazirite. Delilah's heart raced as she realized she had finally gained the secret she sought. That night, while Samson slept, she summoned a Philistine barber who cut off his hair, stripping him of his strength. When she called out, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson," he awoke, but this time he found himself powerless. The Philistines seized him, gouging out his eyes and taking him captive. Samson was imprisoned, forced to grind grain in the Philistine temple, a mockery of his former strength. However, his hair began to grow back, and with it a flicker of hope ignited in his heart. As the Philistines celebrated their victory, they gathered in their temple to offer sacrifices to their god, Dagon, and to mock the fallen judge. In a moment of clarity and renewed strength, Samson prayed to God for one last act of vengeance. He pushed against the pillars of the temple, calling on God to restore his strength. With a mighty roar, he collapsed the pillars, bringing down the temple and killing himself along with the Philistine leaders. In his final act, Samson delivered Israel from the Philistines, but the cost was his life. Delilah's name became synonymous with betrayal, a cautionary tale of the consequences of deceit and the fragility of love when intertwined with ambition. While she had gained wealth and favor from the Philistines, she lost the man who had once loved her, forever marked by her treachery. Samson's legacy, however, endured, a testament to the complex interplay of strength, love, and betrayal in the unfolding story of Israel. The story of Athaliah is a significant yet tragic figure in the Bible, mainly found in the second book of Kings and the second book of Chronicles. Her story unfolds in the context of the divided kingdoms of Israel and Judah, highlighting themes of power, betrayal, and divine justice. Athaliah was the daughter of King Ahab of Israel and Queen Jezebel, notorious figures known for their idolatry and opposition to the worship of Yahweh. She married Jehoram, the king of Judah, thereby linking the northern kingdom of Israel with the southern kingdom of Judah. This alliance brought with it the influence of Baal worship into Judah. After the death of her son Ahaziah, who ruled Judah for only 1 year, Athaliah seized the opportunity to consolidate her power. Instead of allowing the royal lineage of David to continue, she initiated a brutal campaign to eliminate any potential rivals. Athaliah ordered the execution of all her grandsons, ensuring that her reign would go unchallenged. However, one of her grandsons, Joash, also known as Jehoash, was saved by his aunt Jehosheba, who hid him in the temple of the Lord. For 6 years, Joash was raised in secret, while Athaliah ruled as queen. Athaliah ruled Judah for 6 years, during which time she promoted Baal worship and led the nation away from its covenant with God. Her reign was marked by idolatry and the neglect of the worship of Yahweh, leading to spiritual decay in the kingdom. In the 7th year, the high priest Jehoiada devised a plan to overthrow Athaliah. He gathered the Levites and the commanders of the army to reveal Joash as the rightful heir to the throne. They proclaimed him king, presenting him to the people and anointing him in the temple. When Athaliah heard the commotion, she rushed to the temple to see what was happening. Upon seeing Joash crowned as king, she cried out, "Treason! Treason!" However, the commanders apprehended her. Jehoiada ordered her to be taken outside the temple and executed, ensuring that she would not threaten the newly established reign. With Athaliah's death, Joash ascended to the throne at the age of 7. Under the guidance of Jehoiada, he initiated reforms to repair the temple and restore the worship of Yahweh in Judah. Joash's reign marked a return to the covenantal traditions of Israel and a rejection of the idolatry that Athaliah had imposed. However, the shadow of Athaliah's influence lingered. Though Joash began well, his reign eventually faltered after Jehoiada's death, leading the people back to idolatry. This cycle of faithfulness and rebellion against God reflects the ongoing struggle in the history of Israel and Judah. Athaliah's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of power unchecked by moral or spiritual integrity. Her ambition led to her downfall, while the preservation of Joash as a rightful heir underscores the enduring promise of God to David, a promise that ultimately prevails despite human failings. Athaliah remains a complex figure in biblical history, embodying the conflict between idolatry and the worship of Yahweh. The Woman of Endor. The story of the Woman of Endor is found in the first book of Samuel in the Old Testament. It revolves around King Saul and his desperate search for guidance after the death of the prophet Samuel. After a long reign marked by victories and failures, Saul faced a dire situation. The Philistines were gathering for battle against Israel, and Saul was filled with fear and uncertainty. He sought divine guidance, but found that God had become silent. The Lord no longer responded to him through dreams, prophets, or any means. In his desperation, Saul turned to forbidden practices. In a bid to find answers, Saul disguised himself and traveled to Endor, a town known for its practitioners of necromancy. The Israelites had been commanded to avoid such practices, but Saul was willing to take the risk. He met a woman who was a medium, often referred to as the Witch of Endor. He asked her to summon the spirit of the deceased Samuel. The woman was initially hesitant, fearing the repercussions of her actions. However, when Saul assured her that she would not be punished, she agreed. As she performed the ritual, a spirit appeared, Samuel himself, much to her shock and fear. The encounter with Samuel, Saul, still in disguise, asked Samuel why he had been brought back. Samuel expressed disappointment, revealing that God had abandoned Saul because of his disobedience and rejection of God's commands. He informed Saul that the kingdom would be torn from him and given to David, whom Saul had been pursuing in jealousy. Samuel foretold that Saul and his sons would die in battle against the Philistines the next day. This revelation devastated Saul, who fell to the ground, overwhelmed by fear and grief. The woman, recognizing Saul's distress, offered him food and comfort. She prepared a meal, and Saul ate before leaving her home. The next day, the prophecy came to pass. In the battle against the Philistines, Saul and his sons were indeed killed, leading to the end of his reign. The Woman of Endor, while a minor figure in this tragic narrative, played a pivotal role in revealing Saul's grim fate and the consequences of his actions. The story of the Woman of Endor serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of straying from divine guidance and the consequences of desperation. It highlights themes of fear, the search for knowledge beyond mortal means, and the inevitable fulfillment of prophecy. Saul's tragic end underscores the importance of obedience to God's will and the futility of seeking answers through forbidden means.